We are doing review 1 for your exam 1. So what would be your exam 1? What we have learned so far? Okay, so one is main thing we are learning is graphing quadratic functions. That would be one of the first thing you are learning to graph it, right? The second degree polynomials and quadratic function. It can be, opened up or opened down, right? And applications. Then we also covered some miscellaneous things. And let's see, what do we have? One is what? Advanced quadratic equations. Solving advanced quadratic equations. It's like x4 plus, say, x squared minus 2. Things like this, right? More than second degree, then you will make it as a second degree. So we did that. And we also did what? Solving nonlinear inequalities, right? Solving nonlinear inequalities. It's like quadratic function, x squared minus 2x minus 8 bigger than 0, right? Things like this. Or we have rational inequalities. One of those will be on your exam, right? We also learn what? 3 by 3. 3 variables and 3 equations. Right? We learned that. And for your XYZ. Okay? What else we have learned so far? Let's see. We also have learned, we did a review, right? For your 152B class, which was, let's see, what do we have? Oh, okay. We did what? Rational equations, solving rational equations, or solving radical equations, right? So that will be on your exam 1, okay? In the meantime, we will also ask you some vocabularies, okay? Let's take a look. For your review number 1, you can find the blank paper on your website. Also, you can also find the, the keys with the paper, okay? That will be on your answer keys inside the package you have after the this portion, okay? Before the exam 1, then you can see the review paper with the answer key as well. So we are learning functions, right? So if I ask you what are functions, how you are going to answer? We'll keep repeating this. What are functions? All right. So for a function, we use a formal definition is what? It is a set of ordered pairs, right? With what? X and Y's, right? So each x only have what? Is paired up with exactly one y value, right? So each x, you only have one y value, not two. Okay? So we also learned, okay, domain and range for the function. They are, most of the time x, you can use all the numbers from negative infinity to infinity. Only two situations you have restrictions so far, okay, in your class. So one is what? Restrictions. One is what? For the fractions, right? No values, and which will cause a denominator be 0. That means you cannot have 0 for the denominator. Also, things like this, right? And for fractions. Another one is for the even root inside, we cannot have a negative number. So no values, right? Which will cause what? A negative number under the even root. For R root, like this one, you can do that, right? R radicals. So we review the restrictions for the things we are dealing with, like, you know, later on we are going to use for functions. Okay? Also, when we learned graphing the parabolas, okay, you have to find the middle one first, vertex. So how do we find the vertex? And how do we decide we have minimum or maximum, right? So how do we find the vertex? So for your function, standard form, right? So vertex would be what? Your x and y. Then your x would be negative b over 2a, right? Then y is, how do you get to y? Plug in x to get your y. Is that right? How do you find the minimum or maximum? So if a is bigger than 0 and positive, it opens up. If a negative, it opens down, right? Then maximum or minima is what? This guy, y value of the vertex. Is that right? Okay, so we reviewed the concepts, what we have been doing. Now let's do some graphing. Okay, so we do some graphings and application, and we do some miscellaneous things as well. Okay, so let's do some graphing and some applications first. Okay, let's see. We did this many times already. Let's do it one more time. So both are functions. What's the difference? One, we have what? A vertex form. Another one is a standard form, right? So for vertex form, it gives you what? Vertex already, which is you have a vertex form is what? Ax minus h squared plus k, right? So h and k will be your vertex. Then for x, you have to do opposite sign. So vertex is what? -2. Your k is what? 3. Right? So then we do our t-table. It opens up or opens down. It's a negative, so it opens down. Okay? So you have -2 and 3, right? I just want to make it bigger. So -2 and 3, it opens down. So you need to do your t-table. Okay, it's better if you can get a blank paper, do all the review yourself first, then check the answer with the keys. That would be better. That means you will, practice the exam one time by yourself first. Then when you actually do it, it will be much easier. Okay, so that would be -1, 0. You need 5 points to make sure it's a symmetric, right? So you plug into the original, then -2 would be 3, right? -1 would be 2, that would be 2. 0 would be -1 and -1. Okay? So you have to plug in together. So then -1 would be 2. Here 0 would be -1. Then this side would be -3 and 2. Also -4 and -1. So if you have a vertex form, it will be much easier for your t-table, right? So what's your domain? Left and right. -infinity and infinity. No restrictions, right? Not a fraction, not a radical. So range would be up and down, up to where? 3, right? So from -infinity all the way to 3 inclusive. So you use bracket. That's how we do. Right? And let's look at the next example. So then you will answer more questions as well. Okay? You have a bunch of questions you will answer on your exam. So same thing, you need to have a vertex first. So how do we find the vertex? We say vertex is what? X and Y. So this one is -b/2a. Then this one you just plug in, right? So that would be, b is 4. So -4, 2, and 1. So that would be what? -2, right? Then you plug in your y to original. So you have -2, then plug in, right? You have -9, right? So it opens up or opens down. Leading coefficient is 1, so it opens up. So you have what? That -2, -9, right? So you use the t-table. X and y equals x squared plus 4x minus 5, right? You put a -2 in the middle. Then you do one more. What else? -3, -4. Okay? So you plug in, then when x is -1, and it's some number, right? -1, that'd be 1, -4 minus 5 is -8. Then when x is 0, -5, so that would be should be symmetric. Okay, so what do I have here? So -1, -8, -0, 0, -5, then you have a point here, you have a point here, right? So -4 and -5. So your graph will look like this, and here will look like this. Okay, so you need to at least show 5 points on your graph, and to make sure it's symmetric. Then you will be asked a few questions. One is a vertex, another one is line of symmetry, right? Axis of symmetry will be this line, it will be equation, okay? Then you will have a minimum or maximum. What do you think? So it's a minimum equals the lowest point, -9. Then we will also ask you domain and range. So domain is left and right, right? -infinity to infinity. What's the range? How far you can go up and down from -9 and up, right? So it should be -9 to infinity. One more thing we will ask you about is this one, okay? What's your x-intercept and y-intercept? How do you find those? So you use this, right? X and y. When x is 0, you find your y-intercept. When y is 0, you find your x-intercept, right? Then what's your y-intercept? X is 0, you plug in, so x0, y is -5, right? Then what's your x-intercept? It's right here. That means y is 0. So for this one, what do? You put a 0, it's y, right? So 0 equals x squared plus 4x minus 5. Then you have to find your x. It's a quadratic equation. From quadratic function, we have quadratic equations, right? So you can do factoring or with the quadratic formula. So x is what? -5 or 1. See, here is -5, here is 1. But you have to answer the questions with the ordered pairs. So your x-intercept would be what? 1, 0, and -5, 0. Right? Okay, and let's see some apps with the quadratic function. That's what we have been learning, right? I keep kicking the camera. Okay, let's see. Look your page 2, only apps. First one, it says the amount of nitrogen dioxide A in parts per million that was presented in the air in a city near here, South Lake Tahoe, on a certain day in June. It's modeled, so a lot of model you have is by the function, okay? By the formula like this. A of t equals 2t squared minus 32t plus 12. A is like your function, right? It's like f of x equals -2x squared plus 32x plus 12. They are the same, except we use different labels to show you more meaning, right? So what is your t here? Instead of x, t is by the what? Seconds or by the hours? By the hours, right? It says since after 6 a.m. T is the number of hours after 6 a.m. What is A? A is amount, right? Amount of the nitrogen dioxide, right? Amount. So we want to find out its level. So what do you think? For the A, do you have a maximum or minimum? Leading coefficient is negative, means this curve opens up or opens down. Opens down, right? So you have a maximum, right? And where is your maximum? That must be your vertex. So we have to find the vertex. Vertex is what? Instead of X and Y, we use what? T and A, right? T is your hours. So how do we find the vertex? We say it's negative B over 2A, right? B is what? 32. So negative 32 to A is what? Negative 2. So what do we have? We have 8. What does 8 mean? By the hours after 6 a.m. So 8 hours later, that would be what? 2 p.m. That's what I mean, right? Then what's the level? The amount. So you plug in A is what? T is 8. So you plug in 8 to the square, 32, A plus 12. So we get 140. So what does this one tell you? The function, and it tells you use the formula to find the time at which the nitrogen dioxide level was at its maximum, right? So it's telling me that at 2 p.m., right? The level would be what? The level is at maximum of what? 140. 140 of what? Dollars? Fee? Not really. You have to go back. You have to answer the questions with all the units you are using to tell us what you are doing, okay? So the level of nitrogen dioxide is what? 148 parts per million. That's what we are doing, right? Okay, let's look one more apps we did. This one is for function, right? And another one is for rational equations, okay? For a third problem, on your page 3, it says Kim starts a walk 3 miles to school at 7:30 a.m. with a temperature of 0 degrees. Her younger brother, aka the past, starts at 7:45, 15 minutes later, right? On his bike, traveling 10 miles faster, 10 miles per hour faster than Kim. Then if they get to the school at the same time, then how fast is each one traveling? So it's a third problem, right? So what do we do with the application so far for this? We will write the equation. We will identify things needed with only one variable. Then we solve it. right? Then for the third problem, you have many situations. We say use this table. And so you put a what? RTD. R times T equals D, right? R is what? Miles per hour. Put all the calculation on the top. Then time is by the hour. Distance is by the miles. Then for different situation, you list them on the bottom. Kim and his brother, right? So then we have to find which things we are going to find. And for the things we don't know, we use what? X, right? We need to find their speed for Kim and for her brother. So Kim, we don't know X. What's her brother's speed with bicycle? 10 miles faster, X plus 10, right? Then how far do they travel? Look at your question, right? Kim start to walk 3 miles to school. So they both travel 3 miles. Then we don't want to put the time. We don't know the time, but we don't want to put a y there. We only use what? One variable. So then they travel same distance for 3 miles. So we know R times T equals D for the time, right? Time you divide by R. So T is supposed to be distance divided by R. So you can calculate your time with the situation you know, for the numbers you know, right? Then for the brother, it's 3 divided by 310, right? Then second one, you write your equation. Often you make a mistake, right? What's the difference between these two times? 15 minutes, right? Because the brother started 15 minutes later, then they achieved the same time. Then they arrived at school the same time. But you don't put the 15 here because we calculate by the hours. So your 15 minutes is quarter hour. Then the difference of these two times would be quarter hour. So you can do 3x minus 3x plus 10 or 3x plus 10 minus 3 over x. Which one you think you should use? Who took more time? Kim, right? Because she walked, then her brother with bicycles. So the Kim has more time. So Kim's time minus her brother's time should be quarter. So you should not use this. You need to differentiate them. Otherwise, when you solve it, you will not be right, right? So what kind of equations we have? We have rational equations, right? So for rational equations to solve it, we reviewed it. So this is original, right? And equals 1. So how should you do it? You need to have LCD. What's your LCD between 4x plus 10 and x? You need the 4 and x plus 10, all of them, right? You need the 4 and another x for x plus 10, right? So this extra, so you put it here on the top. 4 and x, you need to put it on the top. This 1 times extra, right? To solve your rational equations. So the top 4x plus 10 as LCD, the top will be 12 times x plus 10, right? Minus 12x. Then here will be x plus 10 for x same LCD. If you for same LCD, you can cancel them out, right? Because we will not make the denominator 0. So on the top, you have what? 12x plus 120 minus 12x equals x squared plus 10x, right? Those cancel, then we minus 120, right? Just solve your quadratic equation. So we change what? The linear equation, non-linear equation, rational equation to a quadratic equation, right? Then usually if we can factor it, 12, 120, 12, and 10 cannot make 10. So for this one, we don't have good numbers. So if we don't have a good numbers, what should we do? We should use what? Quadratic formula, right? So x is negative b plus what? B squared minus 4ac over 2a, right? What is your a? A is 1, b is 10, c is 120. You can use calculator for this class, right? So we have negative 10 plus minus what? 10 squared minus 4a is 1, c is negative 120, right? 2 over 1. Right. So we have negative 10 plus minus, that's 100, 4 times 120, 480, so it's what? 10 is 100, 480 is 580, right? Over 2. So you just use calculator to find the square root of 580, which is what? Plus or minus about 24. Okay, because we need to answer the question, how many miles per hour, right? You need to have a number instead of radicals. We don't know what does that mean for a number exactly for the speed. So we need to get an estimate, right? So what do? You have two numbers. You need to separate them. Or negative 10 minus 24 over 2. Then this one will be negative what? 34 divided by 2, negative 17. Can your speed be negative number? No, right? Then this one is 14 divided by 2, 7. What does 7 mean? Dollars, square feet? What is 7? 7 is miles per hour. 7 miles per hour. For what? That's Kim's speed, right? Then what's her brother's speed? 10 miles more, right? That would be 17 miles per hour, right? Are we good? You should be able to do all those, right? Okay, let's do a few miscellaneous things we have been learning, right? One is the advanced quadratic equation, right? So how can we identify them? Are they quadratic equations? Okay, first one and second one, let's see. Then third one, let's see, are they similar or are they different? Okay, so is first one quadratic? How can we decide? All of them coefficients are the same, right? 3 and 2. So first one is yes. Why? Because the first term is the second term take square, right? Because we have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Then first term is the square of second term. First term x half is the second term, take a square x quarter, right? Then second one, if x squared takes square, will be x fourth, not the first term. So it's no. How about this one? Yes or no? So this one is not, right? How about this one? X squared, -1, take a square will be what? -2. Is that right? So this one is a quadratic. How about this one? This one would be, if x cubed take a square, it would be what? x6 is the first one. Yes. Okay? So, let's do them together, see, because they are all similar. All coefficients are 1 and 3 and 2, right? So, let's do them together. So, for the first one, let's do the first one is x squared. Let me just write it together. Okay, for the second one would be x for the c. Okay, -2 plus 3, x -1 plus 2 equals 0. The next one is x6 and plus 3x cubed plus 2 equals 0, right? Because they are all similar and only the results are different, or the process are the same, right? So you will make the second term, this is y, right? Same thing, y, same thing, I make this y. So this y is what? X quarter. So meanings are different, but the process, all the processes are the same, right? So if you take a y, take a square, right? Then would become x quarter, take square, would be x half. That would be this guy, y squared, right? Don't need that. So if I take y squared, would be x -1, take square would be what? X -2. So that would be this. That's why they are quadratic equations, right? Y squared equals x cubed, take square, be x6. So after this, you will write all the same, because that will be y squared, that's y squared, plus 3x, 3y, that's y, plus 2 equals 0. Is that right? Same thing, this is y squared plus 3y plus 2 equals 0. This one is the same thing, 3y squared. Is that right? So all the processes are the same, except that the answer will be different. So that will be y plus 2, y minus 1 equals 0. So your y is what? -2, y is -1, right? Y can be -2 or y is -1. But the question was to find the x. So you have to put it back. Y, all the y's are the same, but the x are not. X are not, right? Because here y is -2. Means what? X quarter is -2. Right? Here y is -2. It means what? X -1 power is -2. Right? Here is what? X cubed is the y is -2. So y's are the same, but x's are different. So we need to find the x's, right? So how do you find your x? So quarter means what? fourth power, right? This one, oops, -1. So fourth power is -1, right? And if fourth power, it's an even power. Can even power, even root, can it be negative? Cannot be negative, right? So x is what? No solution. Right? Even root cannot be negative. So remember, 16 equals 4, -16 inside is what? Not, doesn't exist, right? Not a real number. So either way, it can never be a negative after the even radicals. So it's no solution. And when x -1 equals -2, what does a -1 mean? Means a reciprocal. We keep repeating, okay? Then when you go to next class, you still forget. What can we do about it? All right? You practice. So -1 means a reciprocal, -2, okay? So, oops, -1. Then you times x this way. So get rid of your radical, rational fraction. So your 1 equals -2x divided by -2, right? So x is what? -half. That's one of your answer, right? Then for this one, times x, okay? So you get rid of fractions this way. So 1 equals -x divided by -1. X is what? -1. Right? Then last one. So 1 is what? Turned out it's radicals. 1 turned out is rational. Another one is, it turns out to be a what? Power, right? Then you want to isolate a variable, then you have to get rid of cube. So take a cube rule. Can you do the cube rule with negative numbers? For R rule, you can do that. Right? So this one cancel. X equals what? We don't leave the negative number inside the radicals, right? So for negative, you can take out because it's R rule. So one of the answer is this one. So this cancel. -1 take a cube rule is -1. Right? So you can see for the advanced quadratic equations, it's the same thing as you solve all the quadratic equations, but at the end, you need to interpret those answers back to x's. All right, so you need to find the x. For the radical equations or rational equations or powers. Good? Okay, let's review some rational equations and radical equations. Okay, let me double check if I write the question down correctly. Okay, so we said those things have restrictions, right? Radicals inside the radicals cannot be negative, right? When they have restrictions, when we solve problems, we better check. Okay, so for this one, you can see x equals what? X equals some numbers, rational, right? But cannot be except what? The denominator cannot be 0. So except the 0 and -1. So here x is some numbers except what? 0 and 2, right? So for rational equations, when we find the answers, we will check against the condition. But for radicals, you have to check, okay? Need to check against the original equations. Okay, don't forget about that. Okay, even we write the red colors for you. I don't know. You better pay attention. All right. So remember how do we solve the rational equations? We have to make an LCD, right? Then we can get rid of fractions to do it like a regular linear equations or quadratic equations. Okay, so between x squared and x plus 1, what do you have? That will be x plus 1, right? Let me just write the original, right? Then that's original. Then I want to make an LCD. That means x squared times x plus 1. So then you need x squared here. Then you need x plus 1 here. You need extra x squared there. Right? Okay, so denominators are the same. We can ignore since the denominator cannot be 0, right? So what do we have? We have 6x plus 6 equals 3x squared, right? Then we write it in standard form. Okay, so we have 0, 3x squared minus 6x minus 6. It ends up with what? A quadratic equation. So we try to solve it. I take that out. 2x minus 2 equals 0, right? So I can ignore 3. Actually, I can divide it by 3. So I make it just a simple quadratic equation. It doesn't look like we can factor. If we cannot factor, so how should we find the x? We do what? X equals quadratic equation, right? Negative b plus minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So what is your a? A is 1, b is negative 2, c is negative 2. Right? So we plug in, so see what we have. Negative 2 plus minus negative 2 squared b squared, right? Minus 2 over 2a. A is 1. So we simplify, become 2 plus minus square root of 12 over 2. Then you cannot leave answer there. You need to simplify it. 2 is 2 over 2 plus minus square root of 12 plus 2, right? Equals 1 plus minus. You cannot leave square root of 12 there because you have to simplify. So that will be 2 times 3 square root, right? That's 12. Then you take 2 out, become 2 square root of 3 over 2. This cancel. So the answer is what? 1 plus minus square root of 3. It means 1 plus square root of 3, 1 minus square root of 3. Can I circle the answer? You check against the condition. Not 0, not negative 1. So your x is this. Right? In class, we just let you practice the second one at least. Okay? But now, let's go through it together. However, it's better for you, and I keep repeating this, to practice, to have hands-on. If you don't do hands-on on math, you don't make it, okay? So this is my original. 5 over x plus 6 over x minus 1 equals 3. So I just write it separately so I can fit in my LCD, right? X. Then times x minus 2. So that's x minus 2 extra, x extra, then this x minus 2, right? So I don't have to worry about my denominator. I just do the top. So what do I have? 5x minus 10 plus 6x equals, distribute 3x minus 6x, right? It becomes 11x minus 10 equals 3x squared minus 6x, right? Then minus 11x plus 10 minus 11x plus 10 cancel out, right? Becomes 0 equals 3x squared minus 17x plus 10. Are we good? Then you do factoring or you do the formula, right? So I just do the factoring. This one I can factor it. You can use AC method. So this one, 3x minus 2 is 0. X minus 5 equals 0. So you solve x linear equation. You change it to quadratic equations, then change it to linear equations. So you solve your x. Either one. Right? So that would be your answer. Shouldn't be too bad, right? You should have one of those questions, rational equations, on your exam. Also, you will have one of the radicals equations. Okay? So, let's see. Number 9, radical equations. How should we start? So you look at your notes, the steps, if you don't remember. We have to get the radicals by itself before we can, okay, take a square. So we're minus 6 on both sides. So I have negative 6, right, on this side, and 2 square root 2x on this side. Then what do? We need to get x by itself, right? So you need to take a square, right? Then this square is not x squared minus 36. You need to do FOIL, which is trinomial. X squared minus 12x plus 36. Then this one, 2 take a square, it's 4. Then this one take square is 2x, right? So that would be 8x. So I'm going to minus 8x on both sides, right? So what do we have? X squared minus 20x plus 36 equals 0, right? I'm going a little bit faster than as in the class, because in the class we wait for you to think about it. Here you can just pause, then think about it when it goes too fast, right? Then, am I right? Okay, this one you can factor it, so you solve it. So this one would be what? X minus 18 equals 0. X minus 2 is 0. So I'm going to just write it down. X equals 18 or X equals 2. Right? Can we circle the answers? We need to check against the original equations for your radicals. Okay, so we need to check. Okay, plug in original. It's 18 equals 2 times 2 times 18 plus 6. Let's see. 36. 36 square root 6. 6 times 2. 12 plus 6. 18. Yes. Okay, then how about this one? This one I should have is 2 equals 2 times 2 times 2 plus 6. 4 square root of 4 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 6 is 10, not 2. No. So we cannot use this. You only have one answer for this one. Right? How about this one? How should we start? Same thing. Move 6 over, move that over, right? You have to get the radicals by itself. So this one will be, oops, negative 3x. All right, I just move x over. Negative x minus 6 plus 6. Right? Then get a radical. Get rid of radicals and get x by itself. I can do the square thing. So the negative twice is positive. And this will be 3x. This one will be x squared. That will be 36. The middle part twice. That will be minus 12x. Right? Then move 3x over. So what do I have? X squared minus 15x plus 36 equals 0. Right? Then 36, 9 and 4 is 13. Will not work. 12 and 3 will work. So I have plus, minus 12 minus 3. That will work, right? Multiply together is 36. Add together is negative 15. So I solve this. X is 12. I solve this. X is 3, right? Now, can I circle the answer? We need to check. We need to check against the original equation, right? So 12. Put in here, that will be 12 minus 3 times 12 equals 6. Let's see. 36. Square root of 36, 6. 12 minus 6. Yes. So I can circle this answer. Okay. How about this one? I put 3 minus square root of 3 times 3. Is that 6? So that's 3. 3 minus 3 is 0, not a 6. So I cannot use this. So for this one, you only have one answer as well. So you better check because not all the answers working. So if you don't check, of course, you will get some kind of deductions, right? Okay, so we did advanced quadratic equations, one of the miscellaneous things, right? And we reviewed this for what? Rational equations and radical equations, right? Okay, one more miscellaneous thing is the, let's see, inequalities, nonlinear inequalities. So your test may be for quadratic inequalities or the rational inequalities, okay? So here we just do one review one of the inequalities. So this one is rational inequalities. Your test may be quadratic inequalities or rational inequalities, but similar. So first step is what? Find the critical numbers, right? So critical numbers for rational equations is denominator cannot be 0. So that will be the critical numbers is -5. Then another one is critical condition make greater than or smaller than around the equation side, right? So you need to find the equations to find the boundary point. So this one, we just multiply by x plus 5 on each side. So this cancel out. So we have what? 4 equals x plus 5. So the x will be what? -5 will be -1. Right? Okay. So our critical numbers are -5 and -1. And second one, then you will use the sign graph, okay, to decide where the answers are. So you have one is what? -5 and -1, right? Then you use the regions, 3 regions test. So we'll use 0, -2, and -6. Then when you test, you need to test against original, whether or not bigger than 1. You need to do that one. Okay, so when you do this one, -6, when you plug in, will be 4, -6 plus 5 bigger than 1. We are checking. -1, that would be -4. Is -4 bigger than 1? No. So not here. How about this one? Check. You plug in 4 minus 4 over -2 plus 5 bigger than 1. Okay, so 4 over 3 bigger than 1? Bigger than 1, yes. So this portion working. Okay, according to your critical numbers in between. So this one, 0 will be 4 over 0 plus 5 bigger than 1. And 4/5 bigger than 1? No. So not this part. Then we will answer the question, right, by writing the interval notations. This part. Then you have to decide these 2 points. Can you use a -5? We make denominator 0. No, we don't use. Can we use a -1? Because it can be equal, so you can, or you can plug in, actually, it's 1. Okay, when the x is -1, 4 divided by -4, that would be 1. So the answer is in the middle. So your answer will be -5 and 1, not 1, -1 with bracket. Is that right? Okay, that's inequalities. One more thing, and we have learned is like this. Okay, x minus y plus 5z equal 2x plus 3y plus 3z equals 7. 3 by 3. So we say, how should we solve 3 by 3 problems? You reduce the problems, become simpler and simpler, eventually become simplest thing to resolve it, right? So, how should we start? you identify them first, right? Then you decide what you want to get rid of first. So for 3 variables, 3 equations, we want to drop to 2 variables, 2 equations first. Make it simpler, right? So which one you want to get rid of? Look like y, right? One has to be positive, one has to be negative. So you say eliminate y. Okay? So you can use 1 and 2 to do it, to eliminate y. And if you do that, you rewrite it, 3x plus 2y minus z equals 0, x minus y plus 5z equals 0, right? Then you use another 2. How about 2 and 3? 2 and 3. Then I can get rid of the y as well, right? When you decide to get rid of y, you do it 2 conditions, different situations, all for y's first, right? So if you do that, then get rid of y, you need 1 is positive 2, 1 is negative 2. You have to multiply this by 2. So you will have 2x minus 2y plus 10z equals what? Am I right? You see, I made the typo already. Okay, very easy when you copy things down, so you double check. So this one will be 4. Okay, so then you pair up with the original, right? I give you an answer here, but for the test, you better check yourself. All right, so I double check this one, looks all right. So then this one, when we add it together, cancel out. So I have 5x plus 9z equals 4, right? So I have new equation. So this one would be equation 4. Then for this condition, what should we do to get rid of the y, right? I need to multiply this by 3. So what do I have? 3x minus 3y plus 15z equals 6. Don't mingle it with original, so you better rewrite it a new system, right? So when you check back, you know where you are much easier, okay? So this one would be 5x, is that right? Plus 18z equals what? 13. Then new equation, so that's 5, right? So I reduced from 3 situations, 3 questions, x, y, z, down to 2 questions, x and z. Okay, so then second one, I have what? 4 and 5, right? 2 variables, 2 equations. Okay? So what do you think? Which one you want to eliminate? Looks easier. How about x, right? So you multiply this by -1. One has to be positive, one has to be negative. So that would be -5x minus 9z equals -4. Okay? Then rewrite your second one. Don't mingle with those, so you can see So when you add it together, 7z, am I right? 9z equals 9. So z is 1. Right? That's good. Good number. Usually for your test, I will give you a good number. Right? Homework, maybe you have fractions. So, okay. So I have z equals 1. Then, what else I can find? I can plug in. Not here, because if you plug in z, you don't know both x and y's. So, better use the simple one. So I just plug in 4, right? Equation 4, 5x plus 9z equals 4. So that's 9 minus 9, negative 5. So x is what? Negative 1, right? Now I can plug in. I can plug in second equation. Looks easier, right? X minus y plus 5z equals 2. So z is 1. That's 5. 5 and negative 1. It's 4 minus 4, negative 2. Then y is 2. Okay, you can do that. So what's your answer? Your answer x, y, z should be here, right? Negative 1, 2, and 1. Is that right? I cannot check for you, so you better check yourself if you write an answer, all right, for your test. You need to plug back in each individual one so you actually get to the right answers. Are we all right now? Okay, make sure you study for your exam 1. Okay?